Hello everyone, let me introduce you to Marcia, the Pocket Peckett. My earliest memory of railways was visiting heritage railways with my dad. We would have regular trips out on Saturdays, Sundays, all around the country. Some of my earliest memories were at the Kent-Sussex Railway, which kind of brings us full circle many years later. When they were building an extension to Northiam, we would go along on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon and watch the guys laying bits of track, and the volunteers sort of said, "Do you want to come have a look round?" Allegedly, so my parents tell me, my first words were said there, being both coal and buffer, which I imagine went down really well with my mother. But so started a lifelong passion and latterly career with the railways. My name is Andy Hardy. I am the General Manager of Rapido Trains UK, and I am a lifelong railway nutter. So Marcia was built in 1923 in Bristol by Peckett and Sons. She was ordered originally for Constable Hart's quarry in Matlock in Derbyshire. By 1931, the quarry had closed and the engine moved to Marcus Bain Limited in Dumfriesshire in Scotland. Worked there for a number of years at a brickworks until being laid up in 1943 and sold to the West of Scotland shipbreakers in Troon, probably for scrapping, but anything with wheels was useful in the war, so she was very quickly bought by Manchester Oxide Company in a place called Pendleton, whipped back off to Bristol to have a quick overhaul, back to Manchester. That company later became Harpen and Holden. The Harpen and Holden chairman had a wife called Marcia, and that's where the engine's name came from, being fitted on the cab side sometime in the 1950s until 1962 when they ceased operations and the engine was laid up. And again, at this point, preservation was a twinkle in the eye of many places. But in 1962, a guy called Dick Peckett and a colleague jumped on a motorbike from Kent, went all the way to Manchester on this little motorbike and had a look around the engine, eyeing it up for preservation. The Harpen Holden were really happy to donate the engine, so once it was all agreed, it was given to the Kent-Sussex Railway and arrived in 1963 and was, I think, the third locomotive to arrive on the Kent-Sussex and got the number 12. When the engine arrived on the Kent-Sussex, they found that it still had a couple of months left on its boiler certificate, so it was literally steamed there and then. The story goes on its very first trip. It was a bit of a sick engine. It went out in the weeds down the track and promptly broke down. They couldn't get it to move again, so they decided to leave it there for a couple of days, and they went and fetched it back with another steam engine a couple of days later, which in itself didn't want to play ball. By 1964, the engine had some work and was repainted into the blue livery that the Kent-Sussex was known for back in the heyday that it carried for many years. Looked rather smart, was steamed for AGMs, special days, and lots of little bits of fun. The big problem with Marcia, though, is that she really is too small for any really useful work. So in 1965, Dick Peckett offered to buy it from the Kent-Sussex Railway. So it entered into private ownership, freeing up the Kent-Sussex some money to spend on larger engines. She was repainted into an apple green style colour. She ran alongside the replica rocket at events and ended up for quite a few years being placed onto a low loader and travelled around to events. So she's been out and about and was kind of a roving ambassador for the railway. In 1981, she was the first engine to work a train back to Bodiam from Rolvenden. That was part of the Bodiam steam events where they had sort of a steam fair and they did some rides from Bodiam to Dix to Halt. So the engine, a single coach and a single wagon, literally ran through the weeds all the way out there and ran some rides over a couple of weekends and then came back. Yeah, sort of entered the history books for that. And there's some wonderful photos of those events kicking around. Sadly, by 1985, she had failed a boiler exam and was laid up out of traffic. Obviously, being privately owned, it was going to be a private responsibility to get it back into traffic, and it's not the most useful engine in the world for passenger trains. So she laid out of traffic for quite some time. 2011, she eventually came back into traffic. Very sadly, on a trip to the Kent-Sussex twinned railway in France, she went on a ferry for a little holiday. She failed again with a boiler problem, so she was laid up for a considerable number of years. So It wasn't until 2020 that the owner decided to start work on it. That work continued through COVID, with the engine being complete in 2022, and engine came back into traffic and was used on a few occasions. Very, very sadly, Dick Beckett passed away in 2023, so he'd had the engine for over 50 years at this point, and the loco was offered up for sale. No buyer was found originally at the first auction, and then a second time round went to a dealer's down in Devon, and I was quite literally sat on my sofa at home one afternoon and sort of came across it. Obviously, I'd had a go with Marcia before. I also had a background when I worked for the National Railway Museum looking after an engine called Teddy, which is the saddle tank version of Marcia. Had an absolutely great time with these pocket Pecketts. We'd taken it to Beamish and other places, and it just was so much fun in such a little engine. And I kind of thought, it'd be sad to lose this from the railway that it's called home for over half its life. And how much fun would it be to own your own loco? I previously always had the view of I wouldn't buy my own loco because they're a huge financial liability, but I was sort of overcome by the idea that little engines need a nuts owner. Big engines can earn lots of money running trains, or can earn some money at least running trains, but little engines need to be funded creatively. They need someone really genuinely mad and passionate to look after them. And I thought, maybe there's an opportunity here. Being very honest, didn't quite have the cash at the same time, but obviously working with a model railway company with an equally nuts owner, I spoke to the owner and said, could we do something together here? And Jason, the owner, very, very kindly said, look, why don't we buy it as a joint thing? And over the next few years, you can buy your share out of the engine, so it'll be completely yours in a few years' time. But it allowed us to grab hold of the engine immediately and start having some fun with it, give it a new bright future. So we made some phone calls. We rang the dealers. They said, did you want to come and see it? Thinking that I didn't know the engine. I said, no, I watched it get put on the low loader to go to the dealers. We sorted that out, and a few weeks later, she went back onto the low loader and she headed back to sunny Kent, and she was welcomed back by myself and some of the team from Rapido, and straight away went down to Rolvenden, had a boiler washout and a bit of work done, ready for a boiler exam, and that really exciting first steaming. So one of the biggest problems with owning a steam locomotive in some ways is, how do you afford to do it? How do you make sure there's money in the bank to be able to keep these things running? Nothing's available off the shelf, all the components are expensive, labour's expensive, and they're very time expensive as well. But I kind of applied our business logic to this a little bit. So as much as it's a passion project, very quickly thought, I need to be smart how I do this. Obviously, engines, when they go away or they run train services, can earn higher fees, which puts money into the engine's account for an overhaul. The problem with an engine like Marcia is she's not very big, so she's not going to earn regular money running regular trains. So we need to be a little bit creative. Obviously, we're very lucky that through Rapido and through the day job, I could commission some exclusive wagons and some fun projects like that, which we're able to sell through our website to help raise some funds. We've done badges, we've done some interesting bits of print memorabilia, stuff like that. And we have looked at some other bits of sponsorship as well from companies to help us out. I'm a firm believer in if you raise the money first, you can do nearly anything afterwards. And look at other successful groups that have done that. People like the A1 Steam Trust with Tornado have understood the importance of making money first and spending it second. So we're looking after Marcia in a very similar way. If we can raise the money to do things, we will then go and do the pretty things. And that's very much happening this year with her winter overhaul and winter repaint. We've spent the last year since we've had her raising money, getting hold of supplies, do the right job so that this winter we can turn it around, do the job properly, which in turn means that she will be an exciting new colour, which means that she is more attractive to go out on hire, which in turn means that there's another opportunity to do some more marketing, to get some more sales, get some more interest, which again then leads to the next thing we can do. So we're going to keep it fresh, we're going to keep her moving around. We've got some really exciting plans of how to use it differently. I would love to see her used for more driver experiences, hands-on type experiences for the general public, not necessarily rail enthusiasts, but people we need to convert. We've got to get hold of people in the preservation movement, get them excited and get them giving us money, because money is going to be probably the single biggest issue that many railways and locomotives have. I'd love to see it used for education work. Again, that's a really hard one, is that schools would love to visit heritage railways. We know that one, but schools can't afford to do so. So can we find ways to use Marcia to promote that in some way? So yeah, the real challenge is going to be keeping the cash coming in, but by being sensible about what we spend on and making sure we raise the money first, we shouldn't be in a position where the engine is out of traffic for any prolonged period of time in the future. So this winter we are carrying out a sort of intermediate overhaul with Marcia. We want to return her as close as possible to her original colours and her original specifications. So we'll have a little look round and talk about what we're doing. So the first big thing we've done is we've removed the back of the cab. She was originally built completely open, including no bunker at the rear. The bunkers were actually internal in the cab. Obviously we need a bit more coal for modern operations, so the bunker's going to stay, but we've turned it to an open cab. Great use for driver experience courses, education. People can see us, we can see them, which is really, really good. In the long term, we are looking at replacing the buffers. These are currently austerity buffers. The engine was built as a dumb buffered locomotive, so it just had big wooden blocks. Not very good for modern passenger hauling, but personally, the great big buffers I don't think suit it. Peckett had lovely curved bottle buffers, so we're looking at replacing those. As we work our way around the engine, as part of the cab removal, there'll be some new beading going in. The bunker's going to get stripped out and any plate work checked and repainted to make sure it's nice and tidy. As part of the work, the cab is getting a complete repaint inside. Most engines are usually cream or off-white inside, but we've subsequently found out that Marcia was Indian red inside. Black lower down, Indian red, and then all of the edges of the angles were black, lined out with a little yellow line. So it's going to keep the sign writer really busy. And that comes around onto the outside as well. So this style of lining is actually very similar to how she was built. It should be black with a golden yellow line, and then she's deep bronze green. However, what's missing would be a panel inside here, which would be yellow, black, yellow. And then you've got the nameplate and the works plate, and that goes around all of the engine. So there's an awful lot of lining on it. It's going to be very, very, very pretty. As you can see, we're currently missing something. We've got no tanks at the moment. We've taken them off so that we can get access to the boiler. While they're off, we're also looking at the clack valves and some other bits and pieces. We've also got a slight issue with the rear right-hand horn guide. The horn guide's the bit that holds the axle boxes in the right place when the engine's moving along. It needs some adjustment, and to do that, we've got to take the engine off the wheels. Get the engine off the wheels. To take the valve gear off on the inside, the rods on the outside, we're pretty much there now. So in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to roll it forward and very carefully jack it up to release the wheels. That allows us to repaint the wheels, because again, they should be green with lots of yellow circles on them and black bits. And then the Indian red that's on the inside of the cab is also used on the frames. The frames are going to be red rather than black, edged with black with a yellow line again. I reckon there's going to be about a mile of yellow lines on this by the time we're finished. It's going to look absolutely brilliant. The rods will get repainted at the same time. They're actually going back to Rapido Trains HQ for me to do on my lunch break, so I'll have a bit of fun with those. The mechanical lubricator has been taken off. That's having an overhaul and a repaint, or possibly to be replaced. And you'll notice the chimney is missing. The chimney unfortunately developed a crack in the base and a hole in the main upright. So we are looking at replacing that currently. Work's going on with that one. And then at the back of it, you'll see the little valve here. There would be a lubricator on it. There's been a modern American lubricator on it for the last 30 odd years. But as built, it had a Roscoe mechanical displacement lubricator. We've managed to acquire a brand new one. We've made some parts for it. It's all polished up. It's going to look really good, and that's going to get put back on behind the chimney shortly. Yeah. And there is bits of chimney. So you can see the crack, and it's not easy to spin it round, but somewhere in here there'll be a very thin part on the upright of the chimney around the back. But just a little bit of time, life expired. At the same time, we'll do some preventative maintenance. So if we find any odds and ends, little bits and pieces that we need to replace, pins, bushes, anything that just needs to keep the engine going, we'll do that work. Rather than waiting to the end of the overhaul and doing it all in one go, we'll do a bit of it now, run it for a few more years, then probably do a little bit more work. We know some issues further down the line that we're going to correct, but the aim of the game is to keep the engine in the best condition for as long as possible. So engines like Marcia are very, very different. So it's not like a Black 5 that can haul 5, 6, 7 coaches up and down your 10-mile-long heritage railway. We need to think outside the box with some of our little engines, and I think there's really a place for that in the heritage movement. Brake van tours round sidings that don't normally see access. I've been putting an idea together for some heritage railways that have brake vans to do turntable tours, take a whole train onto it, which is lovely and short, fit the train on the turntable, take it for a spin and go off. We've made the engine an open back cab again, as originally built. Again, so if you had a brake van, people can stand on the veranda, can look inside, see the driver and fireman in action, which is really exciting. It's got loads of educational opportunities attached to it. There's many lines that aren't very long, so a little engine is great for museum demonstration lines. But then being creative with the big railways, a little and large event. You know, you can have things like the smallest standard gauge operational engine with one of the largest. It'd be great fun to see Marcia pilot a 9F or something between two stations on one of the bigger railways, or do a really slow Beer X around the railway. So there's lots of creative opportunities to do that, and I think they're really important that we look how we can use it to do something different and inspire the next generation of people to get involved. So with an engine like Marcia, I really do see myself as just the current custodian. I will be lucky to have her in my life, I hope, for some time, but sometime in the future it'll get passed on to someone or sold. You never know the future, but I don't really see myself as an owner as such. I am a custodian for this piece of history to keep going. And I think the most important thing is I find someone in the future that has the same mentality as that will keep that custodianship going and keep this diminutive little bit of steam history alive in her own corner. During my little tenure though, I've got some ideas for the engine. I really would like to see her put back to as near as original condition as we can get her. So as part of the overhaul, we're also looking at using modern techniques, so things like vapor blasting for getting components really clean. They're cost effective and they leave us with frankly, a really nice finish. Hopefully with a little bit of preventative maintenance at the same time should see her in really good stead for operation in 2026 and beyond.